The Middle Ages is a historical period that occupies a place in European history between the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the year 476 and the discovery of America by Christopher Columbus in the year 1492, or alternatively, the advent of the Renaissance and Reformation in the 15th to 16th century. It is therefore a period of approximately 1,000 years during which European society significantly transformed in the areas of politics, religion, economy, culture, and everyday life. Although the Middle Ages was for a long time designated as the Dark Age, contemporary historians perceive it much more colorfully and place emphasis on its creative contribution and fundamental role in forming today's Europe. Historians divide the Middle Ages into three main stages. The early Middle Ages from the 5th to 10th century begins with the fall of the Roman Empire and migration of peoples. Europe was fragmented among barbarian tribes, and gradually new kingdoms were formed, for example the Frankish, Anglo-Saxon, or Visigothic. An important role was played by Christianization, that is, the spread of Christianity, which became a unifying element of the entire continent. At the same time, new cities, monasteries, and first universities were emerging. The High Middle Ages from the 11th to 13th century is considered the golden age of the Middle Ages. There was development of agriculture, trade, and cities. Cathedrals appeared in Romanesque and Gothic style, knightly orders were formed, and there were crusades to the Holy Land. The feudal system became the main social structure. A king or emperor stood at the head. Below him, nobility and knights who administered the land, and the largest layer was formed by serfs. The late Middle Ages from the 14th to 15th century was marked by crises. Europe was struck by plague, known as the Black Death, which killed millions of people. Wars were frequent, for example the 100 Years' War between England and France. At the same time, however, the influence of the bourgeoisie, trade guilds, and education grew. The first Renaissance ideas began to assert themselves in Italy and indicated the transition to the modern era. Medieval society was hierarchically organized and strongly influenced by the church. Three basic estates represented clergy, nobility, and knights, and peasants with burghers. The life of most people took place in the countryside. Peasants cultivated the land, raised livestock, and were dependent on their lord. In cities, craft guilds and trade developed, especially after the opening of long-distance trade routes. Markets and fairs were places of meeting and cultural exchange. Chivalric culture, based on the ideal of bravery, loyalty, and protection of the weak, was reflected in literature, epics, and legends, for example about King Arthur or Charlemagne. Life in the castle was indeed safer than in the countryside, but also demanding, because castles were not only seats of nobility, but also military fortresses. The Catholic Church was during the period of the Middle Ages the most significant authority. The Pope in Rome had enormous influence on politics, education, and moral values of society. Monasteries became centers of learning and preservation of ancient texts. Monks copied books and established libraries, which enabled the transmission of knowledge to future generations. Medieval culture was characterized especially by architecture. The Romanesque style, with massive walls and arches, transformed during the 12th century into Gothic, characterized by tall cathedrals with pointed arches, stained glass windows, and rich decoration. Art was almost exclusively religious, but gradually secular motifs began to appear. In the Middle Ages arose the first universities, for example in Bologna, Paris, or Oxford. Study was based on the trivium, that is, grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and the quadrivium, that is, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. Although science was bound with church dogmas, gradually there were important discoveries, especially in medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. The Arab world played a crucial role in mediating ancient knowledge, which later contributed to the development of the European Renaissance. The Middle Ages laid the foundations of modern Europe. Nation-states, universities, legal systems, and cultural traditions emerged, which survived to the present. Despite crises and military conflicts, it was a period of creativity and development, which was immensely diverse and rich. Today, we can learn from the Middle Ages' perception of community, faith in values, and the ability to reshape the world from limited possibilities. Although we no longer live in a feudal world, many institutions, ideas, and cultural expressions of this era form a solid foundation of our civilization.